A very warm welcome back to today's action-packed aviation news recap. In today's video, there's focus on an order confirmation coming for the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, Qantas struggling with A380 delays, and Etihad Airways making some very fascinating announcements regarding pilots. Let's begin with Qantas, who are adjusting their network following continued delays in returning the Airbus A380 into service, among other issues related to maintaining the planes. The world's largest passenger plane has long been essential to the airline's operations. However, the company was forced to ground the aircraft during the global pandemic, not necessarily something out of the ordinary. Most companies that had this aircraft parked up the jet. Qantas, though, did say via an internal message that it'll be delaying the Sydney to Johannesburg switch from the Boeing 787 to the A380 as it battles these delays. The expectation is the change will be pushed back around 3 months. These schedule adjustments are for between July and October and are the impact that will be felt from the A380 difficulties. During this period, the airline also says it will make decreases to its Sydney to Santiago and Sydney to Dallas-Fort Worth routes currently operated by the 787 Dreamliner. These reductions occurring again over a few months and in response to the delayed A380. Meanwhile, the number of A380s flying between popular destinations of Melbourne and Los Angeles will decrease, with a more significant reliance once more being placed on the 787 Dreamliner. Ultimately, the return to service of the world's largest passenger plane has been directly attributed to why these delays are taking place. While some A380s have returned to service with the Australian flag carrier, the fact of the matter is, not all of them have. Qantas has been one of those airlines that has long supported the aircraft and believed it will hold a fundamental role in the future of the company. However, it has also long expressed the difficulties it has experienced with returning these planes back into service, not just from the resources required, but even just to generally the time. It is ultimately an inconvenience, but they will see eventual rewards being reaped from this. While the return to service for the two remaining A380s does loom, as they have been in maintenance for some time, focus is also placed on the upcoming cabin refurbishment of the aircraft. This refurbishment is to ensure long-term competitiveness and customer satisfaction across several leading markets where this aircraft is deployed upon. However, what this does mean is that their scope of operations with this aircraft type will reduce for some time, thus resulting in the reductions above and potential future ones. The airline hopes to have 7 A380s of 8 possibly returning, flying into the busy summer 2024-2025 schedule. That is expected to also see further yet unannounced ramp-ups. You can let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comments, and moving on to a story that sticks with the A380 but also now includes the A350. Well, Etihad Airways has announced it'll be one of the first airlines to allow pilots to fly on not just the A350, but also the world's largest passenger plane, the Airbus A380. Following what is described as rigorous regulatory approvals and substantial pilot training, the airline says the qualification has been achieved to allow pilots to operate on either one. As a result, they can transition seamlessly between the two jets, and thus will see the airline pioneer pilot capabilities and asset usage across its company. Etihad highlights how typically airline pilots, and I'm sure you know that this is pretty widespread, will normally stick to one aircraft type, but they might have the potential to move to another aircraft later in their career. Let's say hypothetically they get trained onto the 757 and that aircraft is retired. Well, maybe they'll follow it, or they'll be retrained, or they'll retire. However, Etihad says that thanks to today's high similarities found between flight decks and the noticeable enhancements to training processes and also facilities, the airline can offer more flexibility to its pilots through MFF, that being mixed fleet flying. Not only has this been approved by the Civil Aviation Authority, but it has also been approved directly by Airbus, the manufacturer of the two aircraft types in question. For Etihad Airways, while yes, the compatibility between the aforementioned types make headlines, it's not the first time the Abu Dhabi-based airline has done this. Etihad had previously obtained the necessary approval to see pilots of Airbus aircraft be able to interchange across several types. Additionally, the company has highlighted the ability for Boeing pilots to transition between the 777 and the 787, which is another example of them attempting to use their assets to the best of their availabilities. Ultimately, these extra measures, like I've sort of touched on already, do enhance operational efficiency and flexibility right across their network, and also, to a certain degree, keep their pilot base fresh and willing to expand their own scope. Fleet data indicates Etihad has 5 A350 1000s that are currently in service, with these averaging 4.5 years, but the acquisition of this type, you may recall, came with a lot of uncertainty, order reductions, and also delays. This was all directly caused by the massive splurge on fancy next-generation aircraft that we saw take place in the early to mid-2010s by the airline, as it looked to expand rapidly, which would subsequently really cause its downfall and significant losses, as well as major order reshuffles. The Airbus A380, on the other hand, is an aircraft that has returned back into the scene and proved hugely useful to the company. Onto the final story of today's proceedings, that is, Thai Airways have confirmed an order for 45 new Boeing 787 Dreamliners, which you may recall is also a very long-rumoured and speculated one. As part of the commitment to further Dreamliners, the airline says included in the deal also are more options for additional units should they wish to activate these. All in all, the deal will substantially aid fleet revamp efforts. Such an order, however, had seemingly been in the pipeline for a very long time, with it listed in Boeing's orders and deliveries book. However, a customer had just not been assigned publicly to the deal, thus giving us that fantastic unidentified customer title. Probably one of the last things you like to see when a new order is announced, given that uncertainty there. Deliveries for the new aircraft are slated to start in 2027. These will play, therefore, a crucial role in the airline's next, say, 2 to 3 decades, and will help them continue acquiring next-generation planes and allow for some of the older ones to slowly be removed, whether this is because leases are expiring or for other reasons. Thai Airways has also selected GE to provide the engines, switching away from Rolls-Royce after much deliberation. The expectation is that with the upcoming 2024 edition of the Singapore Airshow, which is commencing next week, be sure to get ready for my coverage on that, much focus will be placed on further details behind the deal, so we should learn more about the specific variant. This, as I've touched on, has been a long time in the making. Thai had been searching for the ideal next-generation widebody to power their fleet and had put forward those important RFPs, that being requests for proposals to Airbus and Boeing. But the decision to eventually select the 787, according to many, was the ideal choice and made a lot of sense. That's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. If you have any thoughts, you're more than welcome to drop them down below in the comments. Thank you very much for your support here on the channel. It certainly does mean a lot. Please do take care, and do also be safe. I'll see you next time for more coverage on the aviation industry. And we'll fly.